I was an amateur. I still am. Making the FYCoDcast was no easy task, especially for someone who hasn't made podcasts before. So there was a lot of groundwork that I had to cover before the FYCoDcast ever got off the ground. I knew about the technical hurdles that you had to go through to actually set up a website to host the podcast on, but I didn't knew what those techniques were. So what I did was employ the help of a friend that helped me get off the ground in both the technical hurdles, like getting onto iTunes, getting a blog for it, because the thing was that I couldn't host the files on the actual Tumblr blog because they didn't allow such big files to be uploaded after all. So he took care of all of that, and all I was left to do was the whole production of the podcast itself. For instance, our main competition, or at least I look at them that way, was another blog called Call of Duty Obsessed, and they had a few people on board that did commentaries. So the ideal avenue for me was to do podcasts, given that I have a radio preparation, and making podcasts isn't that different from making radio programs. Also, I thought it would be good experience, so I went for that. I always envisioned this project as a two-person part, like I would be the quote-unquote expert, and I would have someone to be the complement to the host of the program. But the initial troubles in retrospect was that I never settled for a fixed host. It was like a failed search, come to think of it. On the first season alone, I went through, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. And there were 3 people who I felt I just clicked with, that they would be a good complement to the whole format of it all. In the end, I settled for a girl that was really good at this. She has done podcasting before, although later on I had problems with her and she ended up ditching the podcast. And there was also the fact that I was growing tired with the whole production scheme. And before that, I managed to keep it running for a year, which was impressive when I think back to it. There's also the software that I used to record. At the start, I used Audacity, and learning it was also a big task. Like, I'm not used to work on this kind of programs. It's not what I'm taught in school either, and it's not like I'm a hobbyist. So when I became a podcast producer, it was out of necessity that I had to learn all of these things. And even so, old quirks started to come around. Like, for instance, I have an obsessive, you could call it obsessive, way of over editing myself, because I tend to use a lot of filler words, and even today I still do that. And what I end up doing is that I just scour through the whole track, just eliminating these filler words, almost to a natural obsessiveness. I don't know if that's a good or bad quirk, so there you go. Next, when I began to read a lot on the matter, I switched software from Audacity to Soundtrack Pro. I even tried in the later stages to use Adobe Audition, because that's the software we use at the radio station to work with everything audio related, but turns out that it didn't suit my needs for this whole podcasting business, although Audition is a fine piece of software. So I ended up settling on Soundtrack Pro for the remainder of the production, and even today I still edit and record in Soundtrack Pro. There was also the microphone selection. At first I regrettably used the computer's built-in microphone, so those initial podcasts quality came out like a potato, until I had a headset laying around and I decided to start using it, and that would be the headset of choice for the majority of the productions until I got serious and bought myself a Yeti. And even today, that's still the microphone that I use. This has been a small overlook on the production of what was the FYCoDcast and some of the tools that I use. Thanks for listening, and with nothing more to say, signing out. Goodbye.